Hello everyone, my name is Clemens, I'm with Guangzhou Sourcing, and today I want to speak about 5 rules how to communicate with suppliers in China. Let's directly dive in. I think the most important rule, and that's unfortunately something I see way too often is being done wrong, is don't be arrogant. I see unfortunately quite a lot of foreigners coming to China being a little bit arrogant, thinking they really know it better. Keep always in mind the factories are really professional in what they're doing. They do this all day long. They do this many times for plenty of years already. They really know the product. There's really no reason for being arrogant. If you decide to come to China and source products here, then try to be as open-minded as you can to accept certain cultural things that you are perhaps not used to be. Try to be not arrogant with suppliers, because I think suppliers will also feel this if you bring in a certain arrogance, and I think nobody really appreciates this. So communicating from high level to high level is probably the best, and yeah, I think that's a very important rule to really keep a little bit in mind, to just be a little bit humble. I believe many Chinese suppliers, many Chinese manufacturers are very hospitable. They are very friendly to foreigners visiting. Of course, they see the potential in you becoming a client. They will invite you for lunch and dinner. They will treat you well. They will be friendly most of the time. So try to kind of like bring this attitude also into the relationship. Don't be arrogant, be friendly. Try to build a relationship. Then rule number 2 is define your needs very clearly. I think over communicating is always better than missing out on communication. This is just because there are different expectations, standards all across the world, and as you know, China is manufacturing for many countries in the world, so the export here is being done not just to a certain area. So if you are from the US or you are from Europe and you have a certain standard for that product, also communicate this very clearly so that there's no misunderstanding. Over-communication comes in a lot of ways. If you order products, you might assume certain things. Don't assume at all. My recommendation is really don't assume, just really point it out. What is your expectation? What do you want to see? And then make sure that this is being implemented. So for example, a good example is packaging, right? So there are manufacturers that are very export-oriented and they will always include export packaging into the pricing. But you might find a factory that's not that export oriented and you have certain requirements for packaging. You get a quote, you move ahead, and then all of a sudden later on you realize you have to pay extra for your packaging needs. So it would have been much better to kind of like communicate this earlier on so that you also know what is the final cost, what is the cost for packaging. Same accounts for pallets. So very often when products are being shipped, pallets are not being included in the price. But then if you're saying, oh, my goods need to go to a Amazon FBA warehouse and I need pallets, or for whatever other reason you need pallets, then the factory most of the time will charge for this. So I feel like it's the best to kind of like be very communicative in a lot of ways. Make sure that you rather over communicate than missing out on something and then being sorry later. Then the third point is basically very similar to the second point: communicate expectations, right? So it's not about over communicating only, but make sure you communicate expectations. Expectations in terms of MOQs, what are the quantities you're looking for? It might be really a lot of lost time if you're like going into a lot of discussions about other topics and then you haven't even spoken about the minimum order quantity. And if you're just looking to buy 100 pieces, but the factory is saying our MOQ is 1000, you could have probably either kind of like focused on another supplier in the beginning on, or perhaps reached an agreement with them early on. So I think expectations are important for both sides. Same counts for certification, right? So this just has to be acknowledged that there are factories that focus on a certain area. So they do, for example, a lot of export to the US. So they might have a certification for the US, but then nothing for, let's say, Europe or South Africa, right? Just as an example. So communicate expectations, be very clear what you need, your requirements. It will help you in the process. It will also help you to sort a little bit better out who is a suitable supplier and who might not be. Okay, point 4, use the right communication channels. So now I do understand that all around the world, a lot of people using WhatsApp, but you have to understand that WhatsApp is not a platform that is accessible in China. It's basically blocked by the Great Firewall, so it's not the best tool to really communicate with suppliers. That doesn't mean that there aren't suppliers that use WhatsApp. Sure, there are. There is plenty of factories or suppliers, vendors that are very good with international sales, and they also utilize WhatsApp. But just understand that WhatsApp is not the most common tool used in China. So you might consider emails. There again, I have to say, my experience is that a lot of factories don't use emails as much as you would expect. Again, that doesn't mean that there's no factory using emails, right? So that really depends on the factory. But again, they have this expectation or have this understanding that maybe certain factories don't use really email communication, and then you're not getting far there. You can send 10 emails and you might get one answer after 2 weeks, right? So the right channel is really important. My recommendation there is really WeChat. WeChat is the most common communication tool in China. It's a tool that literally everyone has. You can speak to manufacturers. Most of the factories and vendors and suppliers, they will also internally use even WeChat for communication, and they use WeChat for communication with their suppliers for whatever, raw materials and parts, right? So I mean, WeChat is a pretty good tool, and it should be not that difficult to get WeChat. So, I mean, if you're serious about sourcing in China and making this successfully, then yeah, go ahead, install WeChat, ask your suppliers to add you on WeChat, and start communicating via WeChat. It might make your life a lot easier, and you probably get much faster answers. Okay, last and final point, number 5, build relations. Build relations and probably kind of get to know the culture a little bit better. Build relations is very important in China. There's even an expression in the Chinese language which is called guanxi that stands for relationship, but that's a special term for like, you know, this kind of relationship you build with a partner, with a supplier, that goes a long way. So I think relationships, they can enable you to get much better terms, to win trust. So try to really step by step build a relationship to your supplier. This can happen in a lot of ways. I think, first of all, as I said in the beginning, don't be arrogant, show them also respect. There's also a term in Chinese that describes the face, right? So do not embarrass your suppliers, try to give them face, try to take them serious, take also their considerations and recommendations into consideration. Then you will step by step build a relationship with the supplier that really will help you in the long term, because you might see that they will give you more lenient payment terms, they will maybe do samples for free. So there might be a lot of stuff coming from this entire relationship building you are not probably seeing in the first year, but after time it's really paying off, and it's quite important. So this is something to really keep in mind. Feel free to look it up online, guanxi. That's a pretty big business principle, I would even say, in China. So it's very good to know about it and to also keep it a little bit in mind when you communicate with your suppliers. This is all for today. Feel free to subscribe if you liked it, and if you have any questions about sourcing in China, if you need help, you can always also reach out to us and we can see if we can help you. Thanks a lot and see you soon.